All right, let's get it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bullpen. All right, in the Bullpen today, we have Mr. Jon Ossoff, co-founder of Hedgehog, a new social media platform that combines community and technology to promote free speech and civil discourse by design. He's also he co-founded and launched Parler in 2018, serving as the company CEO. All right, Jon, good day, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You have a novel argument about the current display of protests happening on college campuses, and in which you basically say we did not learn our lesson from January 6th. And so I would like you to unpack that point of view, and I will then opine.
Sure, yeah, no worries. So if you take a look back at January 6th and everything that happened there was about 120,000 people in the Capitol on that day. About 0.5% of those people were the ones who were either arrested or otherwise tried for what happened on that day. And they managed to basically steal the scene. And I think from my standpoint, I see what's happening on college campuses as being very similar. There's a lot of people who are simply sharing their point of view and perspective in a very lawful and in the spirit of free speech in our country all across campuses. There's a very small minority of those people who are stealing the day. They're stealing the headlines. And those are the people illegally occupying the dean's office or whatever it might be when they're breaking and entering and committing some sort of crimes. The majority of the people, I think, on those campuses and the students are not the ones doing that. And so my point is, I think we need to be really careful when people are out there sharing their perspectives and point of view all over the country, that it doesn't get derailed by bad actors. And how do we go about stopping that in the future?
I agree with the sentiment. I just think your point is outside of context. And let me explain. Mm-hmm. The terrorist attack that happened on January 6th, that movement, the character of that movement was inherently violent. The character of the movement was inherently violent. And I think that's an important distinction when you look at what's happening with the campus protests. The character of these protests are inherently nonviolent. And they are opposing in a public way, they are protesting the genocide that's happening in Gaza. They would like life to be maintained and a diplomatic solution to be proclaimed. So I think these are distinctions worthy of highlight. Now remember, within 36 hours, you had multiple people who died because of the terrorist attack that took place on January 6th. And you also had 170 plus police officers who were injured, some of them significantly injured. You had bombs and everything else found on government property during the January 6th terrorist attack. So one is a terrorist attack. The other is a civil protest. Now, are they technically breaking the law? Some of them are. It's called trespass. But Rosa Parks technically broke the law. When blacks wanted to vote in the 60s, technically broke the law. When blacks sat in restaurants they weren't supposed to sit in because we were supposed to get food in the back, that was technically a no trespassing directive. They technically broke the law. But those things we are not to equivocate those dynamics, correct?
Well, I'm not here to defend January 6th at all. What happened on that day was terrible. All I'm saying is that.
But what was it? I think it's important because you brought up January 6th in the context of this comparison, not me. So you have to talk about January 6th because your opinion about it becomes germane to the conversation or debate itself. What do you think took place on January 6th?
Sure. Well, we can talk about what happened on that day with regards to how the, purpose was derailed by a subset of really bad actors who are doing horrible things. And so all the headlines about that day were all about those bad actors. And if you take a look at the media today on how a lot of the people, especially on the right, are covering what's going on in campus protests, they've focused on a few people that are the bad actors. And my point is, I think today on college campuses, there's a very small number of people that are doing those things, breaking in, destroying property, holding themselves up in the dean's office. Those are not the people who are going to be, bringing peace to the Middle East. The people who are conveying a message, which I think is meaningful, are the students who are legally outside expressing their free speech rights. If it was just those people out there, the students protesting that message, which is a great message that people should listen to and consider, right?
Well,
if that's what's going on, that's helpful. But those people who are going above and beyond that, occupying, the dean's office, the halls of the schools, disrupting graduation ceremonies, that's not helpful for that cause. And my point is simply, you can see a parallel when you have bad actors doing something, to disrupt an otherwise a message that's out there.
Do you agree with me that the character of what happened, the energy, the spirit of what happened on January the 6th, is completely different than the character or the spirit of what's happening on college campuses across America? Would you agree with me in that statement?
Yeah, for the fundamentals, it's a completely different event.
Well, different event, but also different energy, different spirit behind it,
sure,
right?
Exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
So there's this anger, and I would push back on any narrative that would suggest that the vast majority of individuals who decided to storm the Capitol were there to be peaceful. This is a breach of significant security. You had active elected officials who were present at that time. This was a breach of all safeguards for our democracy as we know it. And so anyone who participated in that kind of breach definitely was in significant violation of the law, especially once the authorities said, you must leave. This is government property. We now have control. Tactical control was proclaimed. That means everybody was committing trespass, and then everything else that happened from there, from the destruction of property to let's hang Mike Pence, was just a permeation of the original spirit of the movement, correct?
Yeah, and Dr. Richey, I completely agree with you. And if you take a look at the numbers, there was 120,000 people in the Capitol that day participating in a protest. The FBI estimates up to 2,500 people were in the Capitol. Those 2,500 people represent a small subset of the people that were there on that day. And nobody talks about the rest of everything that's going on that day, and for good reason, because some people were there in the Capitol doing horrible things, really bad things that no one should have been in there doing. And those people managed to become the entire narrative about that day.
Well, what were they doing there, sir? So let me ask you this then. Because there are some people who were there who did not commit any destruction of property. That's true. There are some people who were there who did not physically assault a police officer or anybody else. That is true. But some of them gave cover to those who did. Some of them attempted to hide individuals or tell them, hey, come here or run over there, aiding and abetting. And why were they there? What were they trying to do? Those who did not assault a cop, did not do anything that led to the death of another human being. What were they there to do?
I have no idea. It's not like the QAnon shaman was. Yeah, there's not like the QAnon shaman was in Nancy Pelosi's desk where he broke in, writing a new constitution. They were breaking the law. They were doing horrible things.
Exactly. All of them were breaking the law. All of them were doing horrible things. Yes. And so when you say that only a minority, only a small percentage of them engaged in this kind of illegal activity that was more egregious, that they hijacked the message of the majority, similar to, as you have proclaimed, protesters have done on college campuses, which, by the way, I disagree with. But your proclamation is that the minority in the terrorist attack that took place on January 6th hijacked the message. But you can't articulate what message the majority had. At least the college protesters can't articulate.
I don't think the message is
the message.
Yeah, I don't think the message is relevant to what we're discussing today. All I'm saying is that
their message. Wait a minute. If you said their message was hijacked by a minority of individuals who committed crime, what was the message that was hijacked?
Oh, I mean, like I said, it doesn't really matter what message was hijacked. The point was that 2,000 plus people went and broke the law in the Capitol. And now that's really what the media talks about on that day. Just as today,
what if, can I submit something to you, sir? What if that was the message? Do you understand what I'm saying? What if there was no message hijacked whatsoever? That the message itself was a violent attempt to overthrow democracy as we know it. So that's the reason you cannot articulate what hijack happened.
Well, I don't know what the message is because that's what the message became, right? Just as on campus protests today, the message might become. Well, if you take a look at what's happening is the people who are breaking the law inside college campuses, going in and breaking and entering, those are the people who I think are hurting the overall cause of an otherwise message that I think people should get out there, a message of peace.
81% of the headlines are about the college protest, the reason for the protest, or the police engaging in violence against protesters on college campuses. The minority of headlines talk about what you're talking about, but you're saying that's what most of the headlines are talking about. That's not according to Pew Research. According to Pew Research, most of the headlines are talking about what the students would like it to talk about, would like people to discuss. And when you look at the reality of college campuses being shut down or commitments being canceled because students have decided to take over the campus, they have a right. They're the ones who pay the bill there. They are the engine. They are the gas inside of the motor. They are the oil inside of the engine that makes that college run. And what they're protesting is not simply saying, hey, we want a diplomatic solution. They're telling their own university, you have to divest in your Israeli connected corporations while genocide is actively happening by way of the Israeli government. I think that's a fair protest when you are paying for that institution.
And if you want to make that point to people who disagree with you, it needs to be done in a clean way. And what's happened?
Clean way.
Yeah, what's happened
that
is
to me was
any of the vandalism and graffiti that's occurred, it's taken up the headlines of the people who otherwise would need to hear that message, right? And so yes, maybe 80% of the media, according to your statistics, you said has good positive coverage. But I think that 20% is effective. That's who you want to reach, right? You want to change their minds and their hearts. And they want to hear your message. And to do that, I think the small percentage of people who are committing vandalism have derailed that, which would have otherwise been a very productive message to get across.
Do you think you think it has been derailed? The message of these college campus protesters, these students, you think their message has been derailed?
I think it has been by a few small actors. If you take a look at any of the right-leaning media that's covering this, they don't talk about the message against genocide or
do you think the right-leaning media would talk about it properly, appropriately anyway? They're the ones telling us that the terrorists are patriots. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm just saying, if you want to get to people on the other side and you're committing acts that are kind of against free speech and against the spirit of getting your message across, that's going to stop people from listening, and that's unfortunate. And it could be a sign of the fact that people aren't really listening to each other anymore in society, or it just could be it might have been more productive to get that reach if you otherwise had a cleaner way of going about it. And I'm not blaming the protesters at all, because the people who are out there participating in legitimate process, airing their grievances, they're doing a great job. And it's the small number of people, like I said, who are going against that are derailing it.
You decided to focus primarily on those individuals who may have expressed themselves in an inappropriate way. But I would tell you this, as it stands today, nobody has died from the terrorist attack that took place on January 6th that we speak of. No, 174 police officers have not been physically assaulted, and some of them with serious injuries. You have not found bombs, etc. You do agree with me that January 6th was a terrorist attack, correct?
I 100% agree that anybody who broke into the Capitol on that day, anybody who committed any kind of crimes, anybody who broke and entered the Capitol, you could easily equivalent them to terrorists, 100%.
All right, on that we'll agree. So I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks.
And we'll see you soon again, all right? Thank you.
All right, will do. See ya.